Tom Clark's 6M podcast is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show. Hey, what is up? Welcome to Tom Clark's 6M podcast. I'm your host, Tom Clark, and in this episode, I'm joined by co-host Phil Lindsey.
Phenoms. If you're a pro wrestling guy, you've heard that word for years. Undertaker, AJ Styles. Relax, this is not a pro wrestling podcast. I'm just trying to illustrate a point. The word phenom, in my estimation, is kind of something we attach to someone that we just can't clearly define, who has such an impact and leaves an indelible mark on his or her industry for years to come. And again, we use this word, in my opinion, because we don't clearly know what other word to use. Do you call someone a legend that just got here? Not really. Can you call someone a legend 20 years out of fact? Sure, if you want to. But again, someone that just comes from out of nowhere just makes a huge splash, for lack of a better word, in the moment. It's phenom. That's it. That's who we're talking about here today. Notorious B.I.G. Let me tell you something. If the word phenom has ever applied to a rapper, I mean, DMX maybe, I would say. He accomplished so much in a fairly short amount of time. And, but for me, man, when if I think of the word phenom in regards to rap music, I got to be thinking about Biggie, man. And that's who we're talking about here today. And you've heard of this album, kids. If you're a fan of any level, you know this album. It's his debut album. And it's the only album released in his lifetime. Think about that. Think about that. This guy was 22 when this album was released. Think about that. That's a phenom, all right? His delivery, his cadence, his style. Chill. No better word for me than chill. We'll get into that here today and a lot more as we go through this album. But first, let's do this. Ready to Die is the debut studio album by American rapper The Notorious B.I.G., released on September 13th, 1994 by Bad Boy Records and Arista Records. The album features productions by Bad Boy founder Sean Puffy Combs, Easy Mo Bee, Chucky Thompson, DJ Premier, and Lord Finesse, among others. It was recorded from 93 to 94 at the Hit Factory and D&D Studios in New York City. The partly autobiographical album tells the story of the rapper's experiences as a young criminal and was the only studio album released during his lifetime, as we said, as he was murdered 16 days before the release of his second album, Life After Death, in 97. The album features a sole guest appearance from Wu-Tang Clan member Method Man. As we said, released September 13th, 1994. Total runtime, 69 minutes, 5 seconds. And yes, produced by Puff, Mr. C, Blues Brothers, DJ Premier, Easy Mo Bee, Rashad Smith, Lord Finesse, Poke, Darnell Scott, Chucky Thompson. It's a big album, kids, a lot to get into. And that is your lowdown for Ready to Die. So, Phil, we have talked a lot about rap here on the 6M. We've covered some of the biggest artists of all time. We've talked about Big before on the Jay-Z podcast, but we've never really dove into him as a solo rapper. But man, I use the word phenom, a guy that made such an impact with only one album released in his lifetime, and we're still talking about this guy. He's still influential. People are still playing his music today. What are your thoughts coming into this album, and is this a must listen for you on the regular, this album?
I don't know if the album as a whole is a must listen for me, but there are several songs on it that I listen to pretty often. Straight away, when you were saying all the people that contributed to this album, I did think about how relevant it is that Mr. C just passed away like last week. And Mr. C, of course, was the DJ that discovered Big. And wow, just like the influence that Mr. C had on New York hip hop and just like the stature he had in the scene up there, and what he meant to Biggie's career. He definitely deserves his flowers for that. So rest in peace to Mr. C.
He was only 57, by the way.
Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah. Yeah. Of course, like you said, can't ignore the part that he played in this. I mean, dude, because Big wasn't with us that long, and because this album was as big as it was, and still continues to be big to this day, and this guy's shadow looms large, no pun intended, looms large over rap and hip hop in general. I mean, it kind of feels like at times him and Tupac both are sort of, I mean, I kind of say frozen in time. Like when you go back and listen to this album, does any of it feel dated to you? Does it feel like, okay, this is a 90s rap hip hop album? Do you think about that at all, or is it just you're just so used to hearing it? I mean, are they stuck in time in your estimation?
I wouldn't say that. I would say that their career and their time on top definitely feels like a moment in time for me. And
Mm.
so in that way, I feel like some of this album and some of his music can be dated. Um, but it's just also just thinking about like I was there when this was happening. I was there when that happened, and it's just kind of wild that sometimes I think about it, like it's kind of wild that his career wasn't that long. It was shorter than a lot of people think it is.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't realize how short it was, to be real with you. I knew it wasn't long, but whew, man, no, not long at all. Um, he is, dude, for a guy that was 22 when this album came out, I mean, I don't know that I ever saw that. And now keep in mind, I've not watched every single interview the guy ever did or anything like that. But man, he just had so much confidence, at least he appeared to have. How much do you think of this that we saw publicly was him? How much of it was for the camera? Was there a difference? Is there any way to know? Because I don't really have a good answer to that.
I think he was just this larger than life character, and I think it came across in his music, his interviews. Um, man, it's hard to think about him and think like how much of this was really him because I'm not sure at this point. We That was at a time in music and hip hop where we didn't see as much of the behind the scenes stuff as we do now.
Mm,
I feel like now we know way more about celebrities and musicians than we probably should. And he's
mm.
still from that earlier era where we didn't know that much about him until after the fact.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Born May 21st, 1972, in Brooklyn, of course. Died March 9th, 97. The anniversary of his death just passed, by the way, not too long ago. Of course, gunned down. Um, Correct me if I'm wrong. Haven't they cracked that case? Wasn't that making the headlines over the past couple months that supposedly they've finally figured this out?
They had some leads in the case. I don't know if they had if we actually have the suspect. I know we just found out the guys in the Jam Master Jay's death. I know that was just in the headlines.
Mm. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. I could have sworn there was something else though that had come out about this, and they'd finally said, I think there was an arrest made, if I'm not mistaken.
You're probably right, and I'm probably just mixing up stories. But I know that there was a there was an arrest and there was something connected to Jam Master Jay as well. So maybe there's something connected to both,
Mhm.
and I'm just mixing them up.
Now you know what they might honestly. That's starting to sound right. I think you're right about that. I mean, kids, we don't have to dwell on the guy's passing. I mean, it's you know shocking enough as it was, and then the way it went down with him and Tupac, and all the crap against West Coast and East Coast and all that nonsense, and feels with anything else. Was that real? Of course, it was real, but was it exacerbated by the press? 110%. I mean, we've talked about the connection before with Big and also Jay about how Jay sort of slid into that spot and sort of became that voice. Um, but I mean, it's funny, man, to think about what would have happened had Big not been killed, and how much more great content did this guy have in him, and how many years would he have been on top? Same for Tupac. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, would Big have become a producer? Would he have? I don't know. Was he business minded in that regard? Did he only care about being a rapper? I don't know, man. You think maybe that could have been a possibility for him at some point had he lived?
I think it would have been closer to um, Jay Z's career path after music than Tupac's. I could see him possibly doing like some kind of like cameos and stuff, but I don't know if I see him like doing like the acting and all that. I think he would have probably done a lot more on the business side.
That makes sense. Yeah. That's a path I hadn't thought of about whether or not the guy would have wanted to go into Hollywood. That's interesting. That's an interesting thing. Did you see the biopic on him, by the way?
Yeah, it was it was it was good for what it was.
Mhm.
I there were bits of it that I'm like, I don't know. This isn't like I. Of course, Anthony Mackie as Tupac has gotten the most jokes.
Mm.
'Cause that wasn't great, but I think casting Gorillas though as Big was great. I thought he was great in the role. I think Angela Bassett was great in her role. Um, I know that Lil Kim wasn't thrilled about her part in the movie, but I thought that she was great in the movie as well. I thought that they did great casting on Diddy, and the guy that played Diddy was great. Wasn't it
Hmm.
Derek Luke?
I think you're right.
Um, Yeah, I and so there are things about it I really like. It's an entertaining movie, but there are bits of it that I'm just like, this kind of feels off. Like there's definitely stuff that they omitted, but it's a movie.
Yeah, I mean, there's always more masters to serve when you get to production and to the story. I mean, a lot of people that you got to try to make happy during the process, which is I'm not saying that's a good thing, of course, but things tend to take a turn when you get more than one creative voice attached to it. I mean, Puffy was listed as one of the producers on that film, by the way.
Yes. And of course, there was never going to be anything that strayed too far away from his vision or anything that painted him in a negative light. So
Yeah.
that's what you were going to get.
Oh my. Well, kids, if you depending on when you listen to this, Puff Daddy may still be out of the country. Has he come back yet? Is he still out of the country?
He's back in the country, I think,
Is he? Interesting.
because there is no like arrest warrant or anything for him yet.
Wow.
There's just investigations.
Right. Man. All that stuff came out. I forget where I was now when all that started hitting social media, and it's like by the time everybody stopped talking, I'm like, so did this guy kill Kennedy or what? What are we talking about here? Because all the
Yeah,
stuff that was said, like Prince Harry and cocaine, and was Justin Bieber molested? Like, what are we talking about here? I don't know.
it was a lot. But there's been conspiracies around him for a long time.
Yeah,
There are people to this day that think he is connected in Biggie's death.
no chance. Do you believe any of that?
I don't, but I never put anything past anyone.
Well, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of stuff that kind of is weirdly linked up. Like I don't think that he was gonna make a lot of money off of his time with Bad Boy by the time he was gone. Because
Hmm.
when you really look at it, none of Diddy's artists are doing well right now.
Good point.
Now, I think Biggie would have been different because he was a special talent. But I don't think he would have made the money he should have made off of his time with Bad Boy at all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, dude. They just felt like they were just best friends, and like I just have a hard time believing that he would have had anything to do with it. Like I don't know, dude. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I don't know.
Wasn't Big the biggest artist he had at the time?
Yes.
Yeah, that seems counterproductive.
Yeah.
But
Hey man, but when you own the guy's masters and You know,
That's
you
fair.
then became a bigger artist after he was passed away, and then you could still use like his vocals and stuff. It didn't
Mm.
necessarily hurt you on the business side.
That freaking song that we heard from now till the end of time
That
with
he had
him.
to pay Sting on.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, he did have Sting in concert with him, doing the song with him as well. Like,
Mm,
can't just be taking songs.
yeah, I'm sure Sting tapped him on the shoulder afterwards, like, "Great job. Make sure those checks clear."
Yeah. Here's my account number just in case you forget. I remember him coming out. I guess it was the MTV thing. I don't know. I can't keep him straight. But they came out and he come out doing like dancing around and stuff. And it seems like it was the Wayans brothers. One of the Wayans brothers I heard was like, "Man, Puffy can't dance. I'm sorry." Like,
He really
I
wants you to believe he can.
yeah, I can't remember now who it was, but I swear it was. This is an obscure reference, by the way. It was either a Wayans brother or one of the Black Eyed Peas had said it. They were giggling about how, yeah, Puffy can't dance, man. So, yeah, I just remember that happening. God, that song was everywhere. Good Lord, that song was everywhere. I don't know. I just chalked it up to I miss my friend. And, I don't know. Again, no idea. But usually, kids, when we do an album here on the show, we go track by track and break everything down to its bare bones. And we're going to review the songs here, of course, but is it as much of a deep dive as just a sort of a conversation about how we feel about the songs, the concept? And Phil, can you call this a concept album, by the way this thing's laid out?
I can see how somebody would say that. I don't know if I would say it's a concept album, though. Because it's so like semi biographical.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much like storytelling in it. Yeah, I don't know if I would say a concept album, but I think that he does such a great job of telling a story throughout the album that I can see where people get that idea.
That's a good pull right there. That it's more, yeah, that makes better sense actually. It's worth noting that this album went 6 times platinum in this country. Went platinum in the United Kingdom also. Yeah, again, this album is still. I think the remaster was released, then it was remastered, and then remastered again, and you know, someone's making money off this. Hopefully, it's his estate, Phil, and his mother. I hope. Is she still with us, by the way?
I believe she is.
Yeah. Gosh, man, I remember all that. She was on TV, and at the time when they were talking about his killer and everything, and like, man, can't imagine. Can't imagine. And there will be people who will say things like, well, look how he lived, look at the things they talked about. And I'm like, you have to understand that this is entertainment. And there have been plenty of guys on the rock and roll side that have been, doing diss tracks on each other for years. And it could lead to a fist fight. And maybe it doesn't lead to anything. And I would also suggest, Phil, there have been plenty of rappers who have created diss tracks against each other over the years and never led to a shred of violence at all. So to just assume, well, this is the path he chose. I don't know if I believe any of that crap. I just think it's a combination of maybe people that got upset behind the scenes. The whole East Coast West Coast thing is real. I'm not trying to dismiss it by any means. But again, everything's magnified by the press and everything's magnified because hey, it makes for a good story and it sells magazines or sells headlines. I mean, how much of all that do you buy into personally? Do you think that he was on the wrong path with the stuff that was going on with the war between both coasts, or do you think it was really overblown, or what's your take on that?
I think that things just got out of hand. I think that it didn't have to end that way. It didn't have to go that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that he had gotten. Yeah, it's tough to say this and not seem like you're like, you know, judging somebody else's mistakes. Um, because a lot of the stuff that happened with him, it just seemed like it was misunderstandings, and it seemed like it was stuff that he got wrapped up in that he shouldn't have been in the middle of.
Mm.
And I feel like it because that's really what happened with most of the stuff with him and Pac. The stuff with Pac, it shouldn't have turned into a beef in the first place. Pac thought that he had something to do with the guys that shot him. He didn't, and he kept going with that. He kept trying to push this issue with him that really wasn't a real thing.
Hmm.
And if you believe the story, Big says that he warned him about the guys that he was running around with because he knew of those guys in New York. And that also plays into some of the decisions that Pac made that led to his death.
Mhm.
And so I just think it was a lot of stuff that could have been avoided. I don't know if I would say that just because of the crowd that he ran with and the life that he lived, that it was inevitable. It just seemed like a bunch of unfortunate stuff that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah. Shame. Can't rewind the clock, kids. Can't take it back. It is what it is now. But we I don't know. We just tend to silence people that
Yeah.
I don't know, Phil. I just keep going back to the word phenom. I don't know why. I feel like it's the best way I can describe this guy. It's not like he got killed and got forgotten. It never happened. And
Yeah.
and he just, again, we're still talking about him. He's still that voice. Like to be able to have a distinct voice, not just in rap, but in rock and any kind of music where you don't go, oh, that sounds like the same band I just listened to. Like, dude, I don't know of anybody that really sounds like Big, man. His cadence and his delivery was just, I don't know. I just,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
yeah. Did I say Gorilla Zoe earlier when I said that played him in the movie? Wasn't Gorilla Zoe? What's that kid's name? It's Gravy. That's the guy's name. And I mean, he did a very good job of not just recreating just his charisma and what made him so likable, but also just recreating his cadence and his
Mm.
delivery. Not just anybody could do that, but yeah. But part of the reason I don't want to jump into just like judging people's mistakes because I think some of the stuff around Big that was especially linked to Pac, it's like Pac was just making decisions that I just didn't understand by the end. And the
Mm.
more you learn about it, the more you decipher it, it's just kind of like, it just didn't have to do that. Like, why was he running with these kind of people? Why did he do this? Why did he do that? And I feel like I have more of those what ifs with Pac more than Biggie because it's like, yeah, Biggie made decisions that I kind of didn't understand either, but it seemed like it was more so with Pac.
We were talking off mic before we started about a certain pro wrestler in Chicago, born in Chicago. I don't know, man. I think it's more of the CM Punk effect, like we were talking about earlier. Like, not necessarily here to make trouble, not going to run from it. You're not going to bully me. I know what I know what I'm here for. I'm a man. You're not going to take that away from me. That kind of felt like what Pac was to a certain degree. Like, I can't be disrespected. I'm not going to turn the other cheek, that kind of thing. I don't know. Maybe I've got it wrong, but
Yeah. I just when you look at just that year of him going to jail, getting out of jail, and signing with Death Row, and everything he did after that, it's crazy to think about. Like he didn't live a year after that.
mm, yeah, good point.
And it's like I I get you felt like you owed Suge something because he helped you out when nobody else was doing anything to help you get out of jail. He helped you out. But man, the stuff you were doing with Suge and the decisions you were making when you signed with Death Row, I just don't understand them.
Yeah. I mean, actions have consequences. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But yeah, again, it's not for me to sit here and pass judgment on anybody, dude. I'm not going to do it. So, hey, kids, Tom Clark here. And did you know the very podcast you're listening to right now is available on boinkstudios.com. BOINK. Boink Studios is the home of Tom Clark's Main Event, Tom Clark's 6M podcast, and Two Nations Under Ted, a Ted Lasso podcast. Visit the site today for links to every podcast platform, social media, special announcements, and a lot more. Check out the site and bookmark today, boinkstudios.com. again, it's just a shame. It's just a shame. But I feel that way about John Lennon. I feel that way about David Bowie, actually. I feel that way about a lot of people. And Bowie got a lot more time on the planet than any of those guys that we were just talking about. But I don't know. I don't know. There's just, something to be said for gone way, way too soon, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. We talk about somebody that was murdered. Then yeah, their life was taken away from us. Like
Yeah.
there's the whole career that they could have had. That was we were robbed of.
Yep. 100%. Well, kids, one of the reasons I mentioned the word concept with this album is that this album opens with the birth, not the literal birth, but the simulated birth in the intro. What a way to start this album off, man. This is 3 minutes and 21 seconds of this intro. I mean, upon first hearing this, did you kind of realize, okay, I think I know what's going to happen here? This album may be Here's My Life. You know what I mean? Did that translate to you when you first heard it?
No, because I was very confused as to what I was listening to when I first heard it. I was like, what? We're starting with childbirth, and then just the music they decided to go with. Now that I'm older, I could get what he was going for, because you're going not just with music that was kind of like formulative tracks for hip hop, but also formulative tracks for him and what inspired him as an artist.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really just the birth of him as a person, but it's just like his birth as an artist.
That's a good point. Yeah. We're going to call out the inspirations here, folks, and there's a lot. But on the intro, you get Curtis Mayfield's Superfly, you get Sugar Hill Gang's Rapper's Delight, Audio 2's Top Billin', Snoop Dogg's The Shiznit on the intro to this. So that intro is packed full of references from front to back. On the first real track of this album, 3 minutes and 58 seconds, this is how. I mean, dude, his delivery on this track, in my opinion, it's the right track to leave the album off with right after the intro. California My Way by The Main Ingredient is the song that's being used here. Summer Breeze by The Main Ingredient also. Vapors by Biz Markie and Little Ghetto Boy by Dr. Dre is also in this. What do you think about Things Done Changed?
I think it's a great way to start. I think if you're a fan of his career and it's your first time listening to the album, you might be like, "Oh, that's where we're starting." But I
Right.
think like at that time period when this album came out, I think it's a great introduction to the sound that we're going to get for most of the album.
Good point. Sets the tone. This song refers to how the street game has evolved, supposedly, along with Biggie's own game. He compares fashion and lifestyle revolution through the decades and the differences of him being a kid to becoming a man. He also discusses how the streets have got harder and more dangerous while he explains how facing all that has helped him to be bigger than it all. This song, I guess you could interpret as how, crack cocaine turns inner cities the way it did in like the mid to late 80s and early 90s. And, Phil, to say, like, I didn't live through Vietnam. I am just past that, but like, and I've never served the military and thankfully never seen anything heinous or horrendous in front of me, which I'm grateful for. But, this generation, including myself, living through 9/11, or my generation anyway, living through 9/11 and living through the epidemic of crack cocaine. Again, I don't want to make light of it. Again, I'm not seeing it in front of me. However, turning on the news every single day and just hearing stories during that time about how it's crippling these cities and crippling people, just how it's spreading through the country like wildfire. I mean, Phil, the best music comes from the real world. So of course that stuff is going to come out. It's, because if nothing else, I think music keeps us honest as a society. It won't allow us to hide behind, the truth. I mean, it's important that people know what's going on out there. And I mean, how important is that for Big? I mean, do you think that him adding his voice to that, I mean, it's he doesn't hold back when he talks about it, kind of like Jay doesn't, man. What's your take on that as well?
I think not just with the sound of this record, but just like starting with this is kind of a great way to start like what his story is and where he comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Uh So I think that it works in that way. I think he does a great job of painting this picture of, the stuff, the environment that he came from.
That's a good point. Yeah. Things changed, done change on this side. Remember, they used to thump, but now they blast, right? I love how, I don't know, I just like that. The right, you know what I mean? I like that. What do you think about his delivery as a rapper, by the way? We talked a lot about Jay. We've talked a lot about other rappers here. What do you think about his style? And the way he flows with his lyrics, man?
Uh, Man, you know a Biggie flow when you hear it, man.
Yeah.
To this point, when I hear other rappers do it and try and like do his cadence and like things that he was popularized for, like you could tell right away. And so I think his delivery was a bigger part of what made him him. Of course, his
Mhm.
lyrics as well. But man, this was a guy that just floated on records, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. You're right. I mean, it's when you hear someone attempting to do it, it's pretty freaking obvious what they're doing. Um, Hard to hide it. Yeah. I like this song a lot. At any given time, it's maybe my favorite on the album, but it also switches places in that regard with number 3, which is Gimme the Loot. 5 minutes and 4 seconds. I freaking love this tune. Big fan of it. And so we're talking about this song. And on this, man, there's a lot. There's the Harlem Underground Band is on here. The Five Stair Steps. James Brown is on here. The Ohio Players. Onyx is on here. Ice Cube, Gangstar, and A Tribe Called Quest, all on just this track. Dude, I freaking love this song, man. What do you think about Give Me the Loot?
I love Give Me the Loot. It feels like this isn't like the music he came to the table wanting to make, and then you get stuff later with like the soul samples and stuff
Mhm.
that Diddy wanted him to do. Like when I get an idea of like what he wanted to do, I think like things done changed. Give Me the Loot, and like stuff like Who Shot You. So this just feels like the music he wanted to make.
That's a good point. Yeah. So, Give Me the Loot is about Biggie and his right hand man being stick up kids in the streets committing various robberies with little remorse for the victims. Many listeners thought the higher pitched voice was a different rapper, but Biggie provided both voices. Interesting. Um, and the quote from producer Easy Mo B was, he went in the booth and then it just kind of happened. He just started doing it. He would do one voice, then come behind and do the other one later, just like leave a gap so he could come back and fill the spaces. I was like, that's creative. And he really had cats fooled. And supposedly people for a long time believed it was someone else and were questioning who the other rapper was in the booth, but it was just him. I don't know that I even knew that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I feel like that was always kind of his way of telling stories and his way of uh creating this environment in his records of just doing both of the voices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Nas later revealed that Biggie wanted him on Ready to Die after pictures of the pair in the studio together surfaced. The session was supposed to be for Gimme the Loot remix, but it never materialized. Can you imagine that?
Wow.
Yeah,
He definitely missed out.
big time. There again, you know what, Phil? That's something else to talk about. Not only did we lose this guy, of course, and of course his family lost him. Of course it did. But like, man, all the artists had never got a chance to work with him, dude.
Yeah. I
Hmm.
mean, there was things that he had in the work that we didn't get as well. Like, unfortunate.
Yeah, man, I really like this song a lot.
Yeah.
Five
One of
minutes
the
and
best hooks on here, in my opinion. Like one
oh,
of the best refrains by far.
100%. 5 minutes and 4 seconds. It's the second longest track on that album, I believe. Yep. And dude, he's not missing a beat. No pun intended. We go into number 4, which is Machine Gun Funk. You'd be hard pressed to find a better song title than that one. 4 minutes and 10 seconds. Again, another hit in my estimation. Not as many artists on this one. Black Heat, the Horny Horns, who were later removed following a lawsuit, evidently, and Lords of the Underground are on this as well for the samples, of course. I really like this tune, man. There again, it's not a skip at all. I'm still listening. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I love this record. I think the what they went with for the hook, which I can't tell if it's a sample or if it's just him doing an interpolation or something,
Mm-hmm.
but it just works.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really, really good. Yeah, but I mean, I'm a big fan of this as well, man. I really dig this song a lot. And you know, the way it kicks off, so you want to be hardcore with your hat to the back talking about the cats in your raps. But I can't feel that hardcore appeal that you're screaming. Maybe I'm dreaming. This ain't Christopher Williams. Dude, that's really good. He's having a little go at other rappers, as you know, we have tended to see and hear over the years. That's pretty cool right there.
Man, just his flow on the beginning of it, just like his lyrics on it. The way he just glides through the first few lines of the record is so great, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's again, his style and these lyrics are flowing and everything's really nice here. Again, I'll live for the funk, I'll die for the funk. Yeah, that's the refrain for the chorus. Um, yeah, the lyrics are great. Because man, when you read the lyrics, it's hard to not just start rapping them. Like some lyrics you just read and can be like a poem or something, but the way these lyrics just individually read out loud, you can just feel, you can hear a beat in the back of your head as you read them out loud. That's how good this is. So melodic, maybe it's the wrong word for big. Melodic, I don't know, something like that, maybe. No,
No, I think that works.
yeah. Um, God, man, I really like that song. Number 5 is
I
Warning.
thought I
Go ahead.
thought when you got into melodic part, you were gonna get into the part where he drops the Ike Turner line and he does the melodic part into that verse.
It's fair. Yeah. Yeah. I definitely, I remember that reference there. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, isn't it? He does the "What's love got to do with me ripping through your whole crew?"
yeah, that's nice. Yeah. I don't know how I missed that. Yeah. Let's see. It is, yeah. Don't mean I tote the Glock 16 shots from my ends in the pen until we meet again. Yeah. Um, I'm knee deep in the beats in the Land Cruiser Jeep. I'm knee deep in the beats in the Land Cruiser Jeep. That's nice right there. With the Mac 10 by the seats. Just the way all that's put together. That's really nice. Yeah, what's love got to do in it? Yep. Well, you know, beating MFers like Ike beat Tina. That's a little harsh, but you know.
I mean, using that as the setup for the next line, and he did that often, where he would set up a punchline and then he would kind of sing into the next line, and it
Mhm.
always worked.
Yeah. There have been people to do that since he did it, of course.
Of course.
Yeah. But I mean, you could make the case that maybe he made it cool. I don't know. But yeah, I've heard without being able to name any other songs off the top of my head. I know there are the rappers have done it since him.
Yeah, I mean, Jay did it more than once.
He did. You're right. Yeah.
More than once, which isn't surprising because he took a lot of influences from Big.
100%. Yeah. Heavily influenced, which is awesome. You know, not to sound corny here or anything, but you know, Biggie does live on, man. Like it, if nothing else, Jay took him with him every time he did an album, and other artists have paid tribute in their own way. Like, um, you know, there's something to be said for never forgetting this guy, which is a good thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So the next track is number 5, which is Warning, 2 minutes 56 seconds. A bit on the shorter side. It was that double A side with Who Shot Ya? And yeah, so Biggie raps from a dual perspective. He portrays himself having a phone conversation with his associate Pop, who is attempting to warn him about a potential plot against him. Oh my God, Phil. This song hits home, man. Like knowing that what happens to him later. And again, the whole motif of this ready to die concept, and the way he went out, this song kind of just adds to it, man. What's your take on this one?
I feel like this record is one of the songs I always think about from his first album. Like from his early career, this was always one of the standout records.
Mm-hmm.
Um, even when they have the biopic, this is like one of the first records that he did at like during the tours and like the original performances in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I always think of this one like when I think of this album, like it fits the theme of the album in a lot of ways as well. Like you said, with the "Ready to Die" motif, and it is unfortunate, like because when you think about like this was the only album that he released as a living artist, and you definitely get this idea like through all the storytelling in this album that he didn't fear death. He kind of knew that it was always kind of an inevitability. And listening to it after he's gone, it is very eerie. Like,
It's
hate that this.
amazing. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I hate that his life ended the way it did.
I was going to say it's amazing, Phil, that this guy was, a drug dealer and involved in that life, and then got out of it to do this. But like, he still had that belief. I don't know. I don't know how much of it is a rap character, how much of it is him, the actual person believing this stuff. I mean, I don't know, but I don't know that it's an agent in his ear telling him, hey, this death stuff sells for rappers. You should do it. I don't think it's that. But like, he'd gotten out of that, Phil, and he was making a name for himself and was, I assume, making more money than he ever made. Cause, once record executives get a hold of you, boy, they start throwing cash at you to get you to do your thing. But like, he was still in that frame of mind, which is odd. I don't know, man. It's almost like he couldn't maybe get past that, or didn't want to get past it. I don't know. I don't want to psychoanalyze the guy, but what do you think about that? The fact that he didn't just sort of go into the next phase of his life. He was still sort of back in where he was before.
I think it was just kind of that mentality with what he was doing as a drug dealer and where he was from. That we're always told very early on that there's a short lifespan with this,
Mm-hmm.
and so I just don't think that he never fully believed that the rap career would have turned into what it was. That
Mm-hmm.
it was just kind of a thing that he was doing to get out of that, and so he was never fully out of it. Because yeah, he only put out one album, and so it never turned into what we got to see Jay have as a career.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't get to see him, get to have this long adult life, and we didn't get to see him as a parent, even though he was already a parent. But we didn't get to see him. We didn't see how being a parent changed him
Mm-hmm.
because we didn't get that side of him as an artist. We only got the opening act, and so we never got to see where it was going to go.
We only got the opening act. That is a great way to put it. We didn't get anything else. You're right. I mean, who's behind that? Do you think it's him behind that? Is it Puff? Is it the label that they want to keep him looking a certain way? I don't know. Again, I don't want to read too much into this, Phil, because I'm ignorant on this topic of this guy personally. But like, I don't know. Did he want to keep his personal life personal? I don't know, man. What do you think of all that?
Well, I think that we got a lot more different sides of him on the next album because we got the
Mm,
double disc on Life After Death. But I just still think that he's still a lot of living to do. And
mm-hmm.
if you ask me what I thought about life in my early 20s, my answers today would be drastically different.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know, and I think that that's what it was. We're talking about a guy that is coming from a lifestyle where that's all he knew and that's how he made his money. To all right, well, this rap thing is going to be the new thing. That's going to be your career path moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think he got enough time to grow into that.
Yeah. And plus, Phil, there's also the point to be made here that he wasn't around to say what he did and didn't want on that second album.
Yes, that's also true. I mean, he was a big part of because the album was released right after he passed away, correct? I
Mm-hmm.
believe it was like a week or so after he passed away.
Yeah. So maybe he did. Maybe there was more input than I'm giving it credit for.
Yes,
I
I
don't know.
think he had a lot of input on the album. I just think that, of course, we don't totally know what changes were made afterwards, but uh, man, it's just hard to tell, man, because he just had so much more to give as an artist. He had so many more stories to tell. He had so much more living to do, and so we just never know what his music would have changed into. We never know what he would have become.
Yeah. I mean, this song in particular, it's catchy and the flow is tremendous. But then when you know how he went out, like
Yeah.
call the coroner, there's going to be a lot of slow singing and flower bringing if my burglar alarm starts ringing. What do y'all think? What do y'all think all the guns is for?
Yeah, and I mean, I love Warning. I think
Yeah.
it's one of his best records, but
Yeah.
it's just yeah, when you re-listen to Warning and stuff like Suicidal Thoughts, it's just like it's sad.
And how do you think Warning bleeds into the next track, which is Ready to Die, track number 6?
I think that it bleeds very well into the next song. I think that you could easily see Warning being titled Ready to Die.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, really. Yeah, good call. It again, man, like this idea of this guy's already talking about he's 22, Phil, when this is happening. Like I it's freaking nuts to me. Like you're already talking about it. Like I mean, you barely know you're alive at 22, much less know you're going to die at some point. Like, man, this is so much deeper than I think people will ever give it credit for,
Yeah.
to be honest with you.
Yeah. There's a Lupe Fiasco song on his 4th album,
Mm-hmm.
and the hook on it is why you ready to die? You just a baby. Put your hands up in the sky. You just a baby. And
Wow.
it's like it's a reference to so many rap albums that started with the same kind of cover with a baby on the front. And it's this young man talking about how basically he has nothing to live for.
Mm.
And that's kind of the same thing we get from this album and so many other uh uh freshman albums from hip hop artists where it's like the first thing that they're ready to tell us is that, hey, I come from a place where I could die at any point. And it's like, yeah, I hear you. I hear that that's your story, but you got a lot to live for.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Yeah. And like the bad part about what may or may not come after you close your eyes for the last time, kids, no one's ever come back to tell us. So better make the best of what we got here because we don't know what happens afterward. I mean, people want to think they know, and that's wonderful, but a lot of people I'm sure would love to come back.
Tom Clark 6M Podcast is sponsored in part by Radius Law Group. Every day, Radius helps individuals, families, small businesses, and nonprofit organizations throughout North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania resolve their legal issues by providing effective legal counsel in the areas of estate planning, as well as elder law and Medicaid. Radius Law holds the radical belief that working with a lawyer can indeed be enjoyable. So give them a call at 1-800-519-5667 for more information and tell them that Tom Clark 6M Podcast sent you.
I don't know. Maybe I'm making it more deeper than it needs to be. I mean, it's worth saying here, Phil, that Big also said that Ready to Die basically meant he was putting his old life behind him. That life after death means his new life of success after his life of struggle. I mean, I get it,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know, dude. We're only 6 songs in, and this album, while it's already good, I don't know. Is it burdened by the tone of it? Is it too somber? Do you think it weighs it down at all for? I mean, does it weigh it down at all for you personally?
No, I think the metaphor works very well. I
Hmm.
just think that it hits home differently because he's not here.
All right, yeah.
But I think the metaphor of him jumping first into his music career and being ready for whatever comes with that is a great metaphor for a first album. I mean, not just the metaphor of having the baby himself as a baby on the cover, but all of it of like being ready to jump in a completely different life and not knowing where that's going to take you. I think that is a great metaphor, but it's just like I said, just hit home a bit differently because he's not here.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And by the way, kids, for warning, we didn't mention Isaac Hayes is on that. The Meters and Funkadelic. And Ready to Die, we've got Willie Hutch, Sly and Family Stone, Barbara Mason, Big Daddy Kane, Cool G Rap and DJ Polo, Grand Poobah, and Ohio Players. Supposedly also removed following a lawsuit. 2 lawsuits now so far. Music rights are a fun thing, kids. What can I tell you?
Yeah, pay for the music you sample, man.
Exactly. Yeah.
Clear the music you sample first with the artist.
It's important, man. Creators got to get paid, man.
Yeah.
Pay the guy that wrote it.
Yeah. I mean, if not, make sure that you clear these things before you sample them.
Yep. And it's worth mentioning also on this, the Ready to Die track, Puff is all over this one. The chorus is him and Puff as well, so you can definitely hear him. But again, dude, Phil, he's Biggie's very much in his element here. When I hit you, I split you to the white meat. You swung a left, you swung a right, you fell to the concrete. Are you kidding me? Your face, my feet, they meet with stomping. I'm ripping MCs from Tallahassee to Compton. I like that a lot.
Yeah, nah. One of the best wordsmiths in the history of hip hop, man.
Yeah, good call. For sure. Yeah, I like this tune a lot, man. I do. It's you're right, Phil. I think you're spot on what you said about how it hits differently because of the way he went out, which is a shame. Again, we don't want to spend too off much more time on it because you can't take it back. It is what it is. But here's something we definitely not spend a lot of time on is the next track, which is oh wait, I'm skipping ahead. I apologize. Track number 7. I was already going to number 8.
Mm-hmm.
Track number 7, which is One More Chance. Dude. Once again, it starts off with a killer beat. I love this so much. It sounds really, really good. Grover Washington Jr. is on this. DeBarge is on this. And that's it for the samples, man. What do you think about One More Chance, dude?
It's great. I think, of course, when people think of One More Chance, they're gonna think of the remix mostly. But yeah, still a great record.
Yeah, it's really good. I really like it a lot. Man, I'm listening to it right now. God, it's so good.
Yeah, I love the sample they use for this. But again, I just
Yeah.
think when people think Biggie One More Chance, of course you're gonna think of the remix.
Yeah. This is so good. Just again, reading the lyrics, it just even reads differently. And like Phil alluded to, this is not to be confused with the remix, One More Chance / Stay With Me, that hit in 95. The original One More Chance appeared on Biggie's, on this album here, as we said. It's a different beat, almost entirely different lyrics than the famous remix. But it's still a really, really good tune, man. I really like this a lot. And like any good rap song, like you don't have to be able to dance to everything, right? Or like tap your foot to it. But man, again, there's a nice hook here. It's a nice beat. I think this is a standout on this album, dude.
Yeah, great record.
I'm enjoying it just listening to it. We can't share it, kids. They'll yank my pod down. So, darn it all.
Yeah.
Take
I
off.
will say,
Yeah.
compared to the remix, I do think this is a great record. But when you hear it, this definitely feels like an album cut. It doesn't feel as much like the radio record that you want it to be.
That's fair. That's fair. It's very stripped down, is what you mean.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fair. Very simple. Sometimes simpler is better, but I see what you're coming from. Yeah. Take off your Tim boots and your bodysuit. I mean, the spandex, and hit my man next. Man. Yeah, some of this is a little bit, he's working blue, kids. So be forewarned. If you got sensitive ears, earmuff this one. I'm just saying. But yeah, it gets a little raunchy. But he's just doing his thing, man. So can't hate on that too much. This one clocks in at 4 minutes, 18 seconds. The next track was the one I was jumping to prematurely earlier, no pun intended. This one's called F Me. And man, it's a song. Well, it's something. We'll put it that way. This guy, well, you know, dude, DMX had a lot of interludes on his albums. So it's nothing that we couldn't understand. But Lil' Kim is on this. And this is actually Lil' Kim and Biggie having relations. And they're being recorded, which is interesting. There's a Jodeci song in the background. I don't know what to ask you what you think of this or not. I don't know what kind of take you'd have, but it's different.
Yeah, no, I get the humor that's supposed to be behind it, but
Yeah,
it's very graphic. It's very like the description she's using of him throughout the audit are completely and utterly ridiculous, and it's supposed to be funny, but and I get that this is supposed to be like Biggie's self-deprecating humor, but you know, depending on your mileage with it, you're gonna be like, let me skip to the next one. It's definitely not something every time I listen to this album that I sit and listen through all the way through.
it's not something you want to turn up with the windows down. I'm just saying.
No.
V8 juice drinking, slim flask blending, black. Yeah, I won't finish that.
Yeah.
Holy Lord. When she ends it near the end saying Jeannie Craig Eaton, I mean, that's pretty good. Oh, that's pretty good. But yeah, it's yeah. Boy, she talk about someone else that had and again, I don't want to say that she is trapped in an era because I don't know that she is. But buddy, when I think about her, I think about this time period, if I'm being honest with you, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think of course of other things like the memes and stuff she's known for, and all these other things. But yeah, one of the greatest female rappers of all time.
Yeah. There's no disputing that, no matter if you like her or don't like her, for sure. Track number 9. Where's our Wu-Tang fans at? Because we got Meth's on here. 3 minutes, 58 seconds. This is the what? Method Man is like, I don't know, man. It's like just ketchup on French fries. It's like ranch dressing, right? It just makes everything taste better. I don't know. Like, and Biggie doesn't really need any help, but dude, I'm a Method Man fan forever. Like, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, METHOD. As soon as you hear it, you know it's going to be a great verse. And this sounds very New York. Every time I hear it, it's just like not just the vibe that Method Man brings to it. Of course, Biggie is very New York. Like from everything about him, just reads New York. And so these two together, it's like this is like New York hip hop, like unfiltered New York hip hop.
Interesting. There's an interesting story behind this as well. So supposedly, early tensions between Biggie and some Wu-Tang members as well is how he was only paid $2,500 for his verse, which, if you can believe that, Easy Mo B said, quote, with the what, the song was done and everything, and Big, Puff, and me was standing there. And I remember Puff in particular was like, what are we going to call this? And I told him, I didn't name all my beats on the disc that I save them to, so I know what each disc is. So for whatever reason, I wrote on this disc, the what. Puff was like, all right, that works. That's cool. And yeah, which is funny how they ended up that way. It's kind of like Badge, you know, Clapton and George Harrison. The word badge is never mentioned. Badge is the chords of the song. So it's good. Yeah. So according to Meth, here's what he said. We were in Atlantic City and ran into Guru of Gangstar. He was with this kid named Dan Smalls, who I used to work with at Statue of Liberty. Guess who he's working for? Uptown Records. He's like, I've got a CD for you. It's Who's the Man soundtrack. But I want you to listen to my man. It's a single called Party and BS. I listened to that and I was like, ridiculous. This guy's insane. I'm cleaning this up for you kids. But then I didn't hear nothing of it after that. Long story short, my man Raider Ruckus was like, you need to do a song with this Biggie dude. There goes that name again. I'm like, yeah, why? He's like, he's got this song called Me and My B. All right, here's the tape. So I take the tape, play it, and listen to the record. It was like when you see a great movie and the credits are rolling, but you're still there reading the credits because the movie was just so good. You're sitting there until the last credit rolls out. And even when the lights come on, you're still reluctant to get out of your seat because you want to savor that experience. That's how I felt when I heard that song. So that's what led these two guys to working together.
Yeah, that's a great story.
Yeah.
I love that, like the Biggie demo track is what he heard, and that was like his introduction to Biggie as well.
Yeah.
Because that also, if you watch the biopic, the demo track is a big part of the early stuff in the movie as well. Like he performed that early in the movie.
Yeah, there you go. Makes a lot of sense. And see, Leroy Hudson's on this one, and also Avalanche in terms of the samples. Yeah, again, I'm here for anything Method Man does. So I'm always going to be good with that for sure. Well, kids, there you have it. There is the first 9 tracks. We'll call this side 1, I suppose. But to be honest, maybe the first 10 tracks would have been, but we're going to save that one. So in part 2, you're going to hear us review 10 through 19. So hang on for that one, kids. Don't miss it. And we'll do the last word and everything when we get there. So again, check it out. Whenever it drops, we appreciate you, as always, listening, following along, and sharing the show. And we'll hit it next time. But for now, that is Ready to Die, Part 1.
Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Check out our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6M Podcast. We'll see you next time.